Hi, and welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. I'm Jess Dewell, your host of Red Direction. Today, Iva and I are going to be talking about the power of awareness. Why this is important, awareness matters, the ways we use awareness matters, and how it gives us an edge in our thinking, an edge in our leadership, an edge in the choices that we make to get the results we want. And we're going to talk more about that right after this.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Well, then we're going to just jump right in. And one of the things that I find about awareness is there are a lot of ways to get there. Some people meditate, and not meditate to empty our brain of everything, meditate to separate ourselves from our thoughts. Some people actively go after what they are looking for, and they seek out people that they figure out how to build a relationship with that they can trust. And then what do? When they have a problem or an issue or something they're considering, they go to those people that they trust, that think differently than they do, and ask their opinion. Because it's only when we get outside of our own head, what's floating around between our own two ears, that we are conditioned to look for, and we tend to find what we think. And so finding things that we don't think is part of awareness. And I want to start there. What are your thoughts about that, Eva?
When we talk about awareness, we know how people get to that, to that state of being aware of something. What concerns me is that but the issues that people have are usually coming out of a completely different direction. They think that they are aware, or they think that they know what awareness is. And usually it goes like this. Awareness is something that I figure out, which is actually self-explanatory and very visible. Like it's around. I don't have to bother too much to get awareness, which is actually a problem. And you said people go to different sources, to different people, to different, they find their ways to become aware of something.
I'm going to give you an example. So one of the things that has always happened to me is on the occasions, which isn't very often, that I'm driving a new car. I get a new car, whether it's new to me. And all of a sudden I get this car and it's new to me. And what happens? I see everybody else is driving the same car I now drive. And it's because I'm thinking about my car and I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, I'm so cool. Yeah, this is great. How nice to have this new transportation. And then I now have this bond because I'm seeking out something that I already have that other people have too, this sameness. And so now you can have that cool wave, right? Whether it's that on the steering wheel where you put up your two fingers, I actually wave, doesn't matter, but you see all these people that are driving the same car and you realize you're part of something bigger than yourself because other people like this particular car as well.
Yeah, but actually you start noticing that once you start driving the same model of a car.
Right.
Not before that, because before it didn't matter.
Exactly. Yes.
I think that the awareness is something that is very specific and and has to be intentional. When we talk about cars and what we notice once we care about something, that's a different type of awareness.
But it is an awareness, and it's
yes, it is.
To illustrate the point.
Yes, it is. But when we talk about awareness on a deeper level, then we need to seek for something else which is not always around us. When we don't have an answer, when we don't have a specific thing that we can point to and start digging deeper based on the data that we actually don't have.
So let's dig into that, because what you're talking about is actually problem solving. And when we're thinking about the way to get to the awareness that we know we need, or to know what we don't know, or to find out what information is out there that is not in our periphery comes from knowing the problem at hand. And for those of you out there listening that are anti-problem, it could be an obstacle, it could be an issue, it could be a challenge. What words am I forgetting, Eva?
Well, this sounds about right. Enough.
We get,
Yeah.
people will get the point. And the point is, when we know what we're working on, we know then what the next step is, which is to gather data. And you're right. This is where the awareness piece comes in. We know what we know, and we have to decide, is that enough or not? So if we're lazy, what will we say?
We have all kinds of things that we say. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, this is not the thing that I need.
I already know the answer.
Yeah, I already know the answer. I already tried that. And we have all kinds of explanations and all kinds of self-persuasion that keeps us in the same place. Why? People think that awareness, and not all, we're not generalizing here. Sometimes I do have that same issue. We tend to think that awareness is just noticing something, and that's not it.
You're right. It's the snowflake on top of the iceberg that you only see the top of above the water. So can't stop there, must keep going.
Exactly. It's one thing to notice something, and a completely different thing is to be aware of that thing, specifically what you noticed, and start digging there.
Well, how about if we try and backdoor our way into this? Because we're talking about it a little. We started talking about the first two steps of problem solving. And then, of course, the third step is what? After you have defined the problem, you gather the data, we get this extra awareness. What do we know? What do we don't know? What do we need to know? What do we think we already know? And just do some checks there. And then it's make a choice. And then what are we doing? We're seeing what happens. And when we are on, awareness plays a part here too, because as our teams act, as they implement, as they continue to problem solve other stuff that comes up, when awareness is present, we will gather more than just a feeling. We will gather more than just data. We will gather what the experience is and be able to put words around it to determine. And then, of course, the last step is to evaluate. Did we get done what the goal was? Did we not? How do we shift a little and keep going? How do we shift a little and keep going? What else do we need to know? And it's through awareness that we know we've arrived and we're telling ourselves the truth and our teams the truth. We know if we're settling, and we know if we're like, well, now that we started down this path, we really don't want to do it, so we don't need to go anymore. Those are really concrete outcomes of taking the time to be aware.
Awareness has many steps, and it's, in my opinion, awareness is not like set in a stone. Specific awareness about certain problem can have 3 steps, but for you, it might have 5 steps before you get to the level where you're comfortable saying, okay, now I have everything that I need to resolve an issue or make a decision and, or solve a problem. The awareness is an intentional act where you not just observe something else, you observe yourself within that process.
Can I tell you a story?
Of course.
Okay, and then we'll go to this backdoor in thing. So here I am, and Eva, you're helping me with this, so you'll know a little bit of what I'm talking about. I have a ton of content. Those of you who listen to this show know how much content Jessica can create with the help of Scott and Eva and everybody else on our team. Then on top of that, there's the blog, and then there's the other stuff. I have content out my ears, and I've been making content at it doesn't seem like it's very fast, but when you look back, it's an insane amount of content. And I'm trying to figure out how to reuse some of this content. So I have to bring awareness back to this. And my first thought was I needed to create something new from scratch, because that's what I do. I'm a creator. I am willing to just start wherever I'm at and figure it out. The thing is, once I spent about 90 minutes on this and I'm thinking and I'm writing down ideas, I went, oh, there's already something that red direction has made that I can use right here for this. And so what I did was I went digging. And sure enough, I found it, but I only found part of it. So I know there's more to find. However, my awareness, this little thing turned on and was like, why recreate the wheel? What do you already have? This has already been done. And most of us will be like, yeah, but it doesn't apply here. Well, I will tell you what, the 30 minutes that I went to dig up the little bit that I found, I went, yes, this is exactly what I can use right here. And it will be repackaged and it will be repurposed. And now I have something that I can talk to the rest of the team about of what we're going to do next around this particular thing, which, by the way, is going to be a giveaway that actually is tangible and take home when I talk in person to people. And so that being the case, now coming back to the story is, okay, so I've got part of this. And of course, now I'm in, some people would be like, oh, you're in a rabbit hole and you're just chasing information. It would be faster to do the work again. Or, so I would come back out to the team and go, you do this, you do this, you do that. I've spent another hour and I've uncovered more of the information I need, but it's not all of it. And thank you, technology, for having hard drives that failed, that were recovered, that are sitting on the floor. And at the end of the day, yesterday, I was like, it must be on that drive. So now I actually have to switch gears and turn my awareness on. Can I make this technology work? To get the rest of the information that I need. The thing is, I stuck with the awareness. I stuck with that little voice in my head that said, hey, something else is here. Take the time to revisit it. Because will I have wasted an hour if it doesn't come to fruition from the work I did yesterday? Will I have wasted the time to actually get this technology set up to get back to the hard drives where I believe this information is that the team has already done? Maybe. But I will tell you what. If you're going to look at it from that perspective, I'd rather waste one person's time in finding the information or figuring out we don't have it instead of 5 people's times recreating the same thing that would take more time. Level of awareness, choice. Level of awareness, choice. The other piece that I think about when I think about awareness here, Eva, is that it's almost like, so now we've got this thing, we know what its purpose is. What is our awareness of how people will receive it? And this is where we're at in the process now. And the story is going to end, and it will not be a cliffhanger because it's just an example for the show. And invite me to come speak, and you might get to see it someday. There would be that piece too. But in the end, for what we're talking about right here, right, Eva, is all about, we've got to come back and go, so this is what we're using it for. Does it actually work? What can we take from it? And how can we take what we have and launch forward? It's only through the awareness of taking the time to see what's there.
Well, it's a constant balance between awareness and focus on the goal that we have. Because if you're too focused on one thing, you might miss a lot of other things. If you were in your example, you could have been focused on the content, and you might have missed the actual material that you already have. But you took your time, you thought about what you already have, you invested your time in meaningfully explore the options. Sometimes for people, it's easier to start from the scratch and say, I really can't go and waste time here and do that, let's do it all over again. But you never know what you might lose just starting something new. You don't have a background. You don't have anything to upgrade. This way, we have a material that we can use, that we can review, that we can upgrade and use in this time.
The words you're using, I'm hearing people out there going, but I like to start from a clean slate. But I want to make sure that I'm thinking about this from a curiosity mindset. But if I don't look at this like I've never seen it before, I might not even be iterating and making it better. What's your response to those people?
A lot of buts.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
A lot of buts. So, of course, people have choices. Yeah, people have choices. No one is forcing people to review their choices and make decisions. The thing is, when we talk about the awareness, those same but people think about their actions and really weigh which side is the better one. And maybe for them at that point in time in their situation, maybe their but works.
I would even go one step further, and I would be very firm in saying, when we are pressed for time, when we are looking to iterate, when we are looking to make the biggest impact for the least amount of time, energy, and resources as possible, the time is always right to think about things from a curiosity mindset, from a perspective of, have I ever seen this before? We've been hearing these ruffles, these emails, these comments kind of bubbling up about something in our customer experience. So in my think time, I might go out and I might experience what we've got out there as a brand new customer who's never seen red direction before, for example. Another thing I might do that where it makes sense to stop and take a look back and bring in this curiosity mindset is when something that has worked and has been working well quits working. If we think from a curiosity mindset all the time, we are less efficient. By the way, that's a type of awareness. Where am I going to be impactful, and where is my curiosity mindset going to hold me back or be in effect be a distraction? And that is the type of awareness that I think applies right here too, because you're right, Eva. In the example I gave, I could have done all those things or taken all those buts. Yet, I said it from the beginning. Your investment, the team's investment, what we're trying to do with that is so much more important to get us to the end goal than to all of us starting from a curiosity, I've never seen it before, let me experience this for the first time mindset. So there's a place and a time for that, and we must choose carefully.
Talk about taking time to think. We talk about awareness. We talk about customer experience. We talk about data that we need to take a look and figure out what we want to do with all those data. And all these things are actually part of thought leadership in business. Because if you don't take time, if you don't take time to think, if you don't hit the pause button and actually engage in strategic point of view, in strategic thinking, then you won't move forward. You will just finish a job. You will tick a box. You will be busy. You will constantly be in a machine without having an opportunity, without creating an opportunity for yourself or for your team to actually shift things and move them forward. Because all what you said is actually, as I said, thought leadership, which is crucial for any type of business success or innovation or innovative approach in business and customer experience.
I know there is a lot of controversy and a lot of discussion about what the 10,000 hours to become a master at something actually is. And I was going to use that as the launching pad for what we're talking about, which is something you said earlier, Eva. It might take somebody 5 touches with awareness to be able to get there. Somebody with more practice might only take 3. Somebody with more practice might only take 1. Somebody with more practice and the intention, which you said earlier, the intention of looking for different things in a particular way to expand our perspective, they might not even realize that they're doing it anymore. And that's what we're talking about. And just like problem solving, just like decision making, just like practicing our manners, right? Chewing with our mouth closed, putting our face in our elbow when we sneeze, all that good, holding the door open for a stranger coming out when we're going in, whatever it might be, it's something that we can practice and get good at, and we can become better at it. And the more that we are better at it, awareness has an element of perspective in it. And I think some of us don't want perspective. And here's the backdoor piece that we're coming back to. And I wanted to talk a minute about limiting beliefs, because the second piece is the limiting beliefs. We get in our own way. We might create instead of use what we have because we're worried that what we have isn't good enough. anymore. We might want to create new because we don't actually want to go back and see how well we think we did on something when at the work that we're doing. And the limiting beliefs are everywhere. And that's a type of awareness too. When we can find out what holds us back, it's not like we're going to get them out of the way and they're going to just disappear. Some of us can do that. Some of those will go away over time. But we know where we get hung up, so we can say, oh yeah, hi, I'm going to be distracted by you as I'm on my path someplace else.
The funny thing is that sometimes we're not aware of our own limiting beliefs. We just go with the flow.
Which means one of two things. We're flying down, I'm imagining in the flow of a river. We're flying down a river. We might have our life vest on. We might have a nose plug on our nose, but we're just bumping along on the rocks. We have no footing anywhere and we have no control. That's different than actually going with the flow, being rooted and going, yes, bending like a tree in the wind, I guess, right?
Sometimes, for some time, going with the flow can even be fun for certain people, so they start enjoying it. Why are you going with the flow? Is that something that you really have to do at the moment? So, okay, I should better enjoy the ride. Or are you just a passenger without any control?
Right.
Of what's happening around you, of the situation, is it something that's beyond even your perception? The whole thing with people who are, aware or not aware, should be natural. We don't think about breathing. We do it. It's not like, oh, wait, I need to stop now. I need to take a breath, because it's really crucial for me to breathe, otherwise I'll drop dead. It has to be a natural state of mind. You don't have to think about it, but you do need to practice it. Awareness is something that we really do need to practice.
There's the concept of limiting beliefs. I mean, I have a lot of them. I'm not alone. And I have different ones now than I did 10 years ago. However, I have some of the same ones that I had 10 years ago and 20 years ago and farther back than that. The interesting thing when we're thinking about awareness is how do we act? At which point in time can we become aware of the moment when we put on a mask or we step outside of ourselves to act in a certain situation that might make us nervous or anxious, or we're protecting part of ourselves from something that happened to us that we may or may not remember. Some people have it around money, some people have it around action, some people have it around their self-esteem. And I can claim limiting beliefs in every single one of those categories and more. And when I am aware of what my limiting beliefs are, not because I need to change, not because I'm blaming myself, not because they're a problem. I mean, at some point they are and you have to deal with them. But when I'm doing something, when they get in my way, or I see myself not taking an action, or I see myself not willing to step in to what is actually possible and the full scope, I'm just playing small, which means I'm leaving stuff on the table, which means I'm not the leader I need to be for my team. I'm not the leader I need to be for myself, which keeps my self-confidence lower than it must be to do the things that must be done, regardless of what anybody says, thinks, or does, because they're the right thing at the right time, based off of all the other work and the other awareness and the choices and the information that are all coming to play in a moment.
Sometimes people are simply not ready for it, because awareness is also a responsibility, and you need to analyze not just things around you, but things within you. You need to be honest with yourself, and you must say, goes same with the limiting beliefs. I do have problem with something. I do have to take a different point of view. I need to observe things from a different perspective. Awareness is, in a way, analysis.
Which is our next piece. And we're going to continue right after this short station break. It is February 6th. You are watching the Voice of Bold Business Radio live with myself and Eva, talking about the power of awareness. And where we've been moving into just now is this concept of How do we examine our beliefs? How do we know and decide what we want to look at to actually improve ourselves? And then, of course, everything that we create, participate in, show up for, engage in, whatever words make sense for you in this moment, that for those of you listening in. And you're right, there's an analysis piece. And some of us hate analysis. So how do we do that?
I usually meet people who hate analysis. I'm like surprised when someone says, oh, I love it. I like to analyze things. I like to observe. I like to deal with information. It's not always business data, but we can call it information. So
well, let's call it reflection. For the purpose of this, everybody, we are actually talking about self-analysis, self-development, and ways that we can continue doing more of what's working and less of what's not, and add in some things to try to see what else we might be better at. And so when we're thinking about these things, oh, I totally lost my train of thought. I got it back. It's like, here we go. I've got it back. So, I feel, and when I go about my day, and this is the honest to goodness truth. I get to my office this morning. I look at the piles that are around, which only mean something to me. And I pick up one and I start going through it. And I'm like, yes, I forgot I have to do this. And then I turn around to the next pile. Yes, I forgot I've got to do this. And I do that. But then I left the first project that I had just started behind. And then I turn around and I'm like, oh, some message just popped up on my computer screen. I better check out what that is. Yep, I got to make sure the person who's around for this afternoon's Voice of Bold Business has the information. So here I go. I turn around, the phone rings. I turn around and all of a sudden I'm on with Eva and we're getting ready to do our live show and we're talking about the story. I'm like, hey, did you get the thing I sent you about this thing that I'm creating and recreating and updating? Now, how's that going to help me this afternoon, people? Because you're probably going, who is this adult with ADD? I don't know if I have ADD or not. What I do know is that what catches my attention and what is in that moment that must be handled may seem totally distinctly off path and off topic from where I started. Yet that whole cyclical cycle, by the end of the day, I do more that way. And it's because I know how I process. I used to think I made decisions fast and just changed the game plan all the time. Well, turns out I don't do that. I actually need to process and take time to process. So instead of thinking and twiddling my thumbs and just waiting for it to happen, I do something else in the interim. And what it allows me to do is collect context. So I've got all this stuff that I have now touched. So when Eva and I are done here and I have to quick decide, what am I going to do between this and my next recording? I know because I've touched all these things this morning, this and this and this in that order. And it's great. Now, some of you are like, I want to do a thing. I want to see an outcome. And I want to think about how that impacted me and others. And some of us will even go one step further, Eva. Look at all the stuff around. We make a plan. This is what I did. This is what I did. This is what I did. And we actually think about what are the outcomes of each one of those, and then look for a larger picture, for example. Or look, what could we try that we didn't try? Or see which one had an outlier and how did we act differently or do something differently or think differently in that particular moment. It's pretty interesting. All of them are valid and they all work.
Yeah, as long as it works, it's not like you have to do it this way or that way. If you have ODD, then I probably have some kind of OCD.
I'm thinking about this and I'm like, in school, we learn about math and we learn about how to do equations. And then we get into high school, and now we have to think abstractly about these equations. And sometimes we do this logic thing. And I remember that class. I love statistics, but I did not like that thing where all you do is write in symbols and they mean something and you turn around and it means something else. What is that? I couldn't do it. I can't think linearly to save my life. So I felt stupid for a really long time. Then I decided, there's so many things I'm good at. I guess I don't need to know what those little circles were. And I let that limiting belief about being stupid about that thing go. Now, there's residual stuff around that. So if I don't get what's going on, or I'm looking at something linearly and it takes me a little bit longer than everybody else in the room to process, I will immediately have this little adrenaline rush. And it's at the very beginning that it's coming, and I'm like, oh, look, my awareness has a chance to work here. This is because I've been practicing for a long time. Oh, look, my awareness can turn on here. So what do? I don't try and determine what the information is at any point in time about this spreadsheet. I ask a question. I ask a question to get context, because to me, the way I process things in all my little compartments that I'm touching all day long to fit together, until I have context about what numbers are there, why are they the way that they're there, then I can make a decision. And of course, I can decide how do I want to contribute and what else I might have to ask or say about it. Now, once the same reports are showing up all the time, that's old hat. But I'm talking about that first time where we have that little bit of fear. When we have a little bit of anxiety, it's a great place to go, hey, can I turn on my awareness here?
We all have our processes. If that works, what people can do is ask themselves, is there anything I can improve? Because situations change, context changes as well. We might not be able to use the same process or exactly the same approach to the awareness at all times. When I want to get a second point of view, I literally change my point of view physically in space. I go to another corner of the room. I stand on my table, on my desk, work desk, Yeah, I do. Sometimes all I need to do is go and up on my chair, but sometimes I really need to be up. Sometimes it's more of a mental exercise. Sometimes I go out and I walk to like a hill very close to my apartment, and it's pretty high. So I go up there and I look at the things literally from a different perspective. It's a different approach for any one of us, but as long as it works, no matter how silly that looks for someone else, people should not, justify themselves or explain themselves. Right. It works, and they should follow it. Occasionally, they should definitely review their own approaches and see if there's anything else they can add, or they can maybe take away, or maybe change or adapt.
I'm thinking about how can we examine. I talked about one way where we can find that place. Ooh, here comes the fear, or wow, I'm in fear. And what you were talking about is confidence. Where do I feel the most confident? And when we're working from a place of confidence versus fear, we have this ability to be more comfortable with the fact that we don't have to know everything, because we're not egotistically confident. We're confident in ourselves and how we are showing up in this place and space. Do we have to analyze numbers? Do we have to figure out what's going on based off of a whole pile of data? Do we have to go sifting through stuff and plugging stuff in and figuring stuff out and digging through drawers and whatever the case may be? Do we have to get on the phone and make that phone call that we don't want to make? Do we have to face a hard conversation we knew was coming and it turns out today happens to be the day and we weren't really thinking about it? Whatever that situation is, how can we be? How can we do that? And this concept of examining, and it's the first to know, is where are we feeling anxiety and where are we feeling ease and confidence? That's a first good step of recognizing what our beliefs and what our awareness is. And then once we recognize those points, another step could be to, and I'm saying could be because we're all going to figure this out, and I'm just thinking about awareness in general, not necessarily how we do the world to get to that awareness, is that we decide, today I'm going to practice something. I might speak up. I might do something different. I might try writing with my opposite hand, because it creates a feeling, it creates a thought process, it creates chatter in our brain, it creates all kinds of things that we can become aware of when we're doing something new, unusual, or unexpected. And now we can go, okay, so when I'm writing with my opposite hand, I've got these things, and this is what my experiences is. It's what I see, hear, feel. And then when those things show up someplace else, we now can recognize quickly, oh, I'm feeling out of my element. Now, what does that allow us to do? It allows us to use our awareness of that to make a choice. Ooh, so of course we get to talk about my 3 levels of awareness. Who knew? Yes, I like it when those get worked in, Eva. We get to the end of something and don't like the outcome or want to know how we could repeat it. Well, we'll do both sides, the positive and the not so positive. The second, we're in the middle of it going, oh yeah, I know where I'm going to end up. And usually that's when it's kind of crazy and we don't like the outcome. However, it could be, we could get in the middle and go, oh, this is when I feel like I'm whatever, in flow, filled with ease and peace, whatever the words may be. And then the third is what we've been talking about throughout, where there's that moment that choice gets to be made. We become aware of the awareness, and we get to choose in those split seconds. I mean, that's what allows people to, when emotions get in the way, we slow down. I don't know how else to say it. When our emotions or our thoughts or our self-chatter get in our way, we slow down, and it could make or break the moment.
I think that when emotions are, intense, we should slow down. It's not an option. When things are heated, when you are experiencing bruised ego, for different reasons, when you feel under attack, at that moment you're receiving all kinds of information, but not many people can, digest those information right away. So my suggestion is, when you are confronted with, intensive emotions, better slow down and shut up. You don't have to respond right away. Be smart and say, I have to think about it.
So we've talked about 3 things so far that we can do about it, and we might come up with more as we continue our program. One, being after examining our beliefs and understanding a little more about what awareness is and how we are aware and what we are aware of in our experience. Eva, you talked about changing your physical space. I talked about finding a pause. You talked about slowing down just now. And I know there are more. This would be a great place. Everybody watching and listening, join in. What are the things, what can we do about it? And I want to take the moment to talk about the pause and this 3rd level of awareness when it comes into play. I got another story. You ready for one?
Always.
They're not really funny today, but they're relevant. Last Tuesday. Tuesdays are my longest day. I love them. I wouldn't change them for the world. By the time I get to the end of my day, it's time to pick up my son from school. We go to network care and have an entrainment, and then I get to relax into my evening. So I pick up my son from school. He's got ice on his hand. He's crying, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. He doesn't really want to talk about it. His teacher comes over and shares with me what she knows. And so I'm like, okay, got it. So I'm thinking, that's okay. I get it. We'll probably have a bruise. The ice will last until we get done with our entrainments and we can get home, and then we can look at it more. We get literally a half a mile down the road, and Carter starts telling me what happened. And it was a really bad story. And his thumb had gotten pulled all the way back and basically touched his wrist without moving the rest of his hand in some game that they were playing. So I'm thinking, okay, what can I do? I'm tired. I'm not thinking very well. I can feel my emotions bubbling up. Not only is it protective mama bear, and then realizing that protective mama bear can't do anything because it's already done. So it's a different kind of mama emotion. So I pick up the phone and I interrupt Ryan at work, and I'm like, here's this story. Carter's telling this story. I said, we're on our way to Network Family Wellness Center. We're going to have our entrainments. But I'm listening to this story, and there's a part of me saying, let's get this checked out. I want a second opinion before I change up the afternoon. So we decided. Brian got an appointment. We just drove right by, went into a different day later that week, and went to the pediatrician. So in those moments of where, and this was the span of probably 5 minutes, this whole thing happened in the car. I went through rage. I went through sadness. I went through, why is this happening to me? I went through, why is today the day? And then I laughed. I laughed out loud because I'm like, because apparently this is the time that it's going to happen. And now I have a choice. So my awareness kicked in, right? My awareness kicked in and I was like, I get to choose. I get to choose. Can I be present in this moment and be right here and all in and calm and go with what needs to be done and do with what needs to be done right now? Or am I going to just be grouchy the rest of the day? Am I going to stop and doing what I need to do? And it's interesting because when we're tired, I'm using this example after work on a day because we tend to let our awareness lag. We let it go. We don't think about, we've got to have a break from having our awareness on all the time. However, when we practice, we get carried through, which is what happened to me. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I can see the reactions instead of a response. And all of a sudden, a part of me kicked in and went, okay, yeah, all those things are true for me right now. It does not help this little being that is hurting right now. What needs to happen between the two of us to make it right all the way around? And it was to change the plan. It was to stop what was going on. It was to totally what I would have initially said disrupted the day to exactly what was supposed to happen in that time, because we ended up having a couple of other conversations while we were waiting for the pediatrician to come visit us that I would not have had otherwise, that allowed me insights into what he's thinking, how he's doing, what's going on in his world. And that I would not trade for the world. And so because of that awareness, that willingness to be present and say, yeah, this is what I will be doing right now. It doesn't matter what I want. This is what I'm doing right now. And I can be all here and I can be open to this. Even though he was a hurting kid, I had a great conversation with my son. And so that's just an example of how something could be crazy, was on its way to crazy, ended up not being crazy, and a memory was made.
Life is one big obstacle when you think about it.
Yes.
All kind of issues are happening, whether it's like something minor like a tech issue or like something much more serious like the thing with the thumb and going to the doctors. And when we have this awareness, part of awareness is also acceptance, not in terms, okay, I'll accept this and I can't change it. No, acceptance that things will not go our way, usually not ever, that we need to fight, that we need to work on what we need to accomplish. So that's the part of the acceptance. Not that I'm giving up, I accepted that I can't change something. No, I'm accepting that things are away from, not in my control, that they might never be in my control, but still I need to push forward. I need to make a choice to change the situation, to change the outcome if I can, in any way. So it is a conscious decision. It is a moment of awareness that things are happening and yeah, I'm not happy about it. And this can end in like 5 totally wrong ways or 1 right way. So let's make it right way. And I know people are usually, as you said, when we are tired, when our energy level is low, when we are not feeling well, when we are overwhelmed, we tend to ignore awareness even when we can have it. And if we can practice not to avoid those moments, then I think that we can do pretty well with the things that are out of our control, that we can't change.
Which is most stuff. I mean,
which is most stuff.
Think about it. We've got a full day of meetings. We're back to back. We're going to be lucky. We've got to hit every green light. And what happens? We get a call and our bank says, did you make such and such a card for $27.42 at some store you've never heard of? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Whole rest of the day derailed. What's going to give? And will we give ourselves the space and grace to go, okay, so making sure money stays in the bank so other stuff doesn't bounce, important. Getting to my meeting on time, important. I better make a phone call to have connection to figure out how I might do this thing.
And you know what? You just shifted to a really good point. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but awareness also allows us to create priorities. And not just like, okay, this is important for today, so I need to tick those boxes. No, it's about this really has a priority over everything else in this moment. And yeah, it will take maybe 3 hours to resolve the issue, but this has to be dealt with now. Otherwise, it will become from a snowflake an avalanche. Awareness helps us there too. Priorities and being productive and more wise and smart about our time and our efforts.
It also allows us to conserve our energy, right? So in that story that I said, I didn't expend any more energy than I absolutely needed to, being present in that moment and aware of all the things I could have done, which would have expended energy with Carter. And it turned out I didn't need any of those. And by the way, his thumb is okay. It's all good. But that's one piece. And I'm also thinking about, what about that meeting that you have at 10 o'clock in the morning and you think it's going to go well and somebody does something where you feel stabbed in the back, or you feel like you've been thrown under the bus, or you recognize that there is a problem brewing, and if it does not get facilitated and diffused now, there's going to be a world war whatever. Right? All those things can happen. So we can expend energy to suppress, to avoid, to pretend. We can also say, you know what? The best use of our energy here is to put this together here. I'm not sure what to do in this moment, but I recognize this is the thing to do. And in that, usually the information we need follows, or the first starting question occurs, or a statement that will allow everybody to realize, hey, there's something going on here. We're dealing now.
Sometimes it's important at least to say something.
Yes.
So that it's like noted, so that other people hear it. You know, we don't have to always come up with a solution at that particular moment.
Right.
But sometimes just pointing out a potential issue or potential opportunity is providing an insight for the group, for the team.
Yes.
For us.
And that doesn't mean laying our problems on them, and it doesn't mean being whiny about it. There's a mantra that I use, and it's, I will make choices based off of what will be compassionate and kind to myself and others. That doesn't mean good. It sometimes compassionate and kind to others can deal with good situations, mediocre situations, and really horrible, hard, difficult conversations, because I must speak my truth. However, I must do it in a way that we are approachable, open, and the opportunity for dialogue is there. And all of that requires awareness too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So why is it bold, Iva? Why is it bold?
To be aware?
Yes, to embrace the power of awareness.
It's bold because it takes time. We are all in a rush for time. We're constantly in that race. It's bold because we need to invest our time, and we know how difficult we are when we need to invest our time in something that hasn't not produced a physical result yet.
And I'm going to add to the boldness that it creates empathy. And true empathy is when we start thinking about others before ourselves. And this entire show has been from the perspective of what can we do? What are the outcomes of what we can do? How can we be better at our own personal awareness? And that was on purpose. The purpose is we must start with ourselves, because until we know how we feel, until we know how we react, until we choose consciously how to respond, it's very hard to put our perspective and our awareness into walking in somebody else's shoes without accidentally being sympathetic and condescending. And so coming back to, it's bold to have empathy, and self-awareness is a step toward empathy. This is the Voice of Bold Business Radio. You're listening to program 123. Eva and I have been talking about the power of awareness. You can find all the program notes for this show at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P123. That is the voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 123. You can also search Power of Awareness. You've heard it. We talked about what is awareness. We've talked about limiting beliefs in awareness. We've talked about how do we examine. We've talked about what can we do about it. And we talked about why it was bold. So email radio@reddirection.com, use hashtag VBBRadio online, and share your comments, ideas, and feedback about the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Listen in and subscribe to our show wherever podcasts are sold. Share your story and experience and add this conversation of what it means to be a leader today through your experiences with awareness. And we want to know, what have you realized from your personal power of awareness?
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.